Cinema Worms.
Discussing everything from Grima Wormtongue to the Shy Halib.
I'm Zabib.
And I'm Lindz.
And this is the Cinema Worms podcast.
And wombats poop in cube form.
Oh, no.
Okay. This week we saw Thai film How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. Now, this is director Pat Bunitipat's film directorial debut, as before this he had directed mainly episodes of TV, and the film has broken box office records in Thailand, and the reception has been, as far as I can see, sort of overwhelmingly positive. So the film follows a young man called M, who is the grandson of Minju, who has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And after M's cousin inherits a house from an uncle that she had been taking care of, M suddenly sees the value in hanging around his grandma, much to her chagrin, but in doing so he becomes much less of a wastrel who just plays video games all the time and is completely just a lazy idiot, and becomes a better man as a result. Now, for me, this was a perfect film. It was tender, it was sweet, it was touching. As a person who grew up very, very close to my great-grandmother after my grandmother died very young, this was a film exceedingly close to my heart. I had to keep the tissues on hand for this once again. I feel like I've seen a lot of films this year so far. It's only January, and I have cried so many times. Now, the relationship doesn't begin easily. It is quite fraught to begin with, often comedic. Lazy M struggles to adhere to his grandmother's strict routine and her very demanding needs, and she's reluctant to let him in, particularly after some of her children treat her in slightly unkind and sort of demanding ways at times.
Yeah. You know, what I really liked about this film is that it's both darkly humorous and sort of uncompromising in depicting how selfish M is. Like, he's just this young upstart brat. He's completely lazy and self-involved and narcissistic, and you believably turns it around. And then also it's a film that has like a huge heart that is absolutely sincere and full of love. So I just thought it was, and so funny also, like very, very funny. And if you know of such films as The Farewell, and recently I saw Her Story, which is a Chinese film sort of around not exactly similar themes, but the idea of these sort of tender yet funny yet fraught relationships between family and friends. So yeah, I found this movie very compelling. The also just like the focus on the grandmother character, allowing this older woman to be a full character, to be independent, to be sometimes irascible, and to also have a lot of hidden tenderness in her. And yeah, I think we see a lot of character growth. I just love a good family drama. It was lovely.
Yeah, you know, the actor who plays M, he does a fantastic role, but I have to say the actor who plays the grandmother completely stole the show for me. You're completely right. She was incorrigible at times. She had a tough shell to break down, but it was very clear that regularly there little cracks would appear in that armour. By the time that M sort of began to break her down, there was quite a bond between them. And obviously without the cancer diagnosis, he would never have moved in. He might never have done this. So on sort of ironically, the closer he became to her, the further away in some ways. And yeah, I found this a very touching film. And it felt like a very family-oriented week, because the other film we saw was A Real Pain, which we'll talk about in a second, and it felt very much like a look at how we interact with other people in our families, the ways in which they try our patience, the ways in which we try their patience, I'm sure, and the ways in which we connect and push each other away.
So now we're talking about A Real Pain. This is I believe it's the directorial debut for Jesse Eisenberg, and he also wrote the screenplay. It stars him and Kieran Culkin as cousins in their, I guess, late 30s, early 40s, who haven't maybe seen each other in a few months, or it's been a while, and they reunite in the airport to take a flight to Poland. They were left some money by their grandmother who just recently died, and she was a survivor of the Holocaust and used to live in Poland and escaped when she was young. So she's left them some money to go visit the homeland to truly understand the impact of the Holocaust. And the film follows them while they're in this tour group. They're going around, I believe, Warsaw, then various other towns in Poland, then a concentration camp, and then finally their goal is to see their grandmother's old house if they could find it. I really enjoyed this film for a lot of reasons. It's just, first of all, I love Jesse Eisenberg. I know, but he really is such a thoughtful, interesting actor, and he's trying to do something so interesting with this film. So first of all, it's very funny. It's very quick. It's got a lot of honesty to it. I think in the relationship between him and Kieran, also in the dynamic between all the people in the tour group, which is like hilarious in its own thing.
We must talk about Will Sharp, who I know.
Will Sharp,
I know we
Will
love Will Sharp. Will Sharp is our film boyfriend.
Oh my god!
And
yeah.
we have loved him for many years.
Yes.
We like him in Flowers and in White Lotus and all the other things he's done. Will Sharp is consistently great.
Check out Will Sharp.
This is just, if Will Sharp, if you're listening, call us. It's all good.
Yeah. We were a big fan. So he plays like a side character who is the leader of the tour group, and he does this kind of, I think, put on Northern England accent. I don't think that's his accent,
No,
but he's lovely. His role does make sense in the film, as he's sort of both Kieran Culkin's character and Jesse Eisenberg are playing off of him. But anyway, the central point of this movie is a couple things. The relationship between him and Kieran Culkin's character, they're cousins, right? So they're very close. They grew up almost as brothers, but then there's also a bit of a divide between them. They've been almost like semi-estranged for 6 months for reasons you discover throughout the film. And it's about pain and who deserves to have pain, right, as compared to their ancestors who went through the Holocaust, but then they're just sort of going through their own existential, maybe more or less legitimate pains. So I think that's what the film is trying to explore.
I also think there's maybe another second meaning in that, which is a real pain is also what Kieran Culkin is in this film. He is a real pain. Because he's kind of an asshole. There's lots of different moments where he is an asshole to Jesse Eisenberg's character or to other people in the tour group, seemingly pretty much at random. His moods are very temperamental. His temper can come and go like a gust of wind. He is, and sort of like the start of How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies, it is a difficult bond that they have. It's clearly a strong one, but it's a difficult one. And Kieran Culkin character is difficult to love as an audience member, but at the same time I came out of it thinking maybe he is actually all the more lovable because he is so clearly lost and looking for direction in this film. And he seems to have this idea that by returning to a place where their ancestors came from, by looking into the past, this will give him some direction. And I don't think it really does. Not in the way that he's looking for, certainly. So he feels to me like a compass that can't find north. He is just spinning and spinning in this film, and he's sort of taking that feeling out on other people quite a lot of the time. But that being said, he can be very charming. You know, you can see why people fall into this guy's orbit, but at the same time, he can kind of turn on a dime.
Yeah, he's emotionally labile. He's clearly dealing with some mental health issues, and he's also charismatic. He's perceptive. He's obnoxious, as opposed to Jesse Eisenberg's character, who's just like totally frustrated with the way his cousin's acting, but also he totally admires him because he sees his cousin as able to draw people in to fully experience his emotions, and Jesse Eisenberg is basically totally repressed. So seeing that dynamic of them playing off each other and battling out, like, okay, how are you supposed to exist in the world? Are you supposed to feel things or repress all your feelings? And I thought it was psychologically astute. I really enjoyed it.
It's also very funny. I wasn't expecting it to be quite as funny. And unlike you, I'm not a huge Jesse Eisenberg fan. I haven't loved all of the stuff in his back catalogue. I may be one of the only people in the world who didn't like The Social Network. That's okay. There are dozens of us. Dozens, I say. Maybe just me. I don't know. We'll form a club. But I've struggled to find roles of his that I've really liked, and I think this has changed that for me. This was a really, really interesting role. and I feel like I've been missing something, and now I see what it is.
Yeah, and one last thing. Everyone is talking about Kieran Culkin's acting, and he is amazing. He is like just bringing so much. But also Jesse Eisenberg in his quiet way brings a lot to his role.
Unlike me to say this, but I actually think of the two, Jesse Eisenberg actually nails it even harder than Kieran. And I'm a big Kieran Culkin fan, but I do think that Eisenberg nails something here in this quiet, desperate way that is actually so compelling. I think it would reward you to watch this film multiple times. I think you would get more and more of it on each rewatch.
Agreed.
And of course, there's always more Will Sharp, so that's nice.
Yay.